Welcome back to our Carl video series. My name is Rob from Ahead Simulations, and in this video I'm going to be walking you through how Carl works for masking, and specifically talking about the interaural attenuation and the crossover. So masking was a competency and a request that we had very early on with Carl. It's a competency that is very challenging to learn for the first time, and even experienced clinicians, there's a lot of intricacies that can be difficult to get your head around. What was very important for us for Carl from the beginning was that this represents a case that you would see in clinic as best as possible. The biggest thing there is to make sure that you can use the bracketing method correctly, that you can find your plateau correctly, and Carl responds realistically all the way through that. Something that is very important to know for Carl when you're doing masking is Carl has a patient-specific interaural attenuation and crossover. We're gonna put a little chart right here on the video showing you what the actual numbers are per frequency and per transducer, as Carl is made to represent, again, that average case. When we went through our extensive literature review to find exactly what those numbers were for the crossover per frequency and transducers, there was a lot of training standards out there that differed. Some training standards said that for supraoral and circumoral, you want to use the 40 dB crossover as a benchmark to determine what frequencies need masking. There was others that had more than that. There were other standards that it was actually frequency dependent that they were telling you. And what we quickly found was that none of the standards directly align with what the actual interaural attenuation values of a human is. Part of that is because interaural attenuation values, it's not the same for everyone. Different patients and different people that you'll see in clinic, they may have slightly different values. And so the purpose of those training standards is to give you a conservative value to determine when you may require masking. This means that even if 40 dB crossover is right for when you're using circumoral headphones on a patient, you may find that you don't actually need to mask at that frequency, because as you bracket and as you find your plateau, you didn't need to increase the stimulus at all. Now, all of this being said, we want Carl to represent as close to an average patient as possible. This means that the interaural attenuation values here, they are what has been researched in the literature. And even though they don't directly align with every training standard out there, it is still very relevant for Carl to represent a clinical case, so that when you first get to clinic and you may see this case, it doesn't surprise you and it's not different than the training standards. It is actually what the human values are. Now that probably sounded very confusing, but I think in summary, Carl is made to represent the crossover and interaural attenuation values of an average human. It is not meant to represent the exact training standard in which you may be trained to in your country or in your region. So don't worry about this too much. When we have our Carl Pro software booted up, you will see inside of the Create an Audiogram, it will take you through a user interface and a little wizard telling you exactly what those interaural attenuation and crossover frequencies and values are, and it will coach you through how to create an audiogram that does require masking. If you're an instructor, we would absolutely recommend you take a look at our Create an Audiogram feature in the admin portal to really create your own masking case and understand more how Carl works. If you're a student or a trainee, don't worry about that at all. Just know that Carl is made to represent a case that you'll see in clinic and not specifically testing you on your training standards that may be relevant for your certification or for your region. Carl is made to represent the patient. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to a member of our team. If not, there are lots of other videos that we will have in our online video series about Carl. Be sure to check them all out.